one of the second largest voting bloc in the entire nation.
And we have more to celebrate than ever before.
This administration is not about identity politics, it's about America.
The facts speak for themselves. Unemployment is at 3.9%, and Hispanic unemployment is at a record low.
By increasing the safety in our country, by promoting more job opportunities.
The Republican Party has always stood by the Hispanic community.
And make sure the Hispanic vote is heard.
We know and we've seen that this president is working day and night.
We have so much at stake.
We need Republican majorities in the Congress to support President Trump's economic policies.
And we need to ensure, whether it's national security, the economy, all the issues that are so important to us as Republicans, that we participate and make our voices heard.
We are Republicans, and we're proud of being Republicans.
Good morning. Happy fall Saturday. I love it when we get out of this 100-degree weather. This wears me thin. This is Lou Benninger. You're listening to Live with Lou. If you stumbled across the station, you think, who are these guys out here? We were just listening to a rerun for the Andy Vasquez show, and Nate Black was given some great information. Nate is the Sutter County Auditor Controller, and we probably get more authentic, good information in our Yuba Sutter County area than most counties do in California, because Nate goes on the radio and just talks about what's shaking. It's hard to find out what's going on in government, right? If you ask them, they say, well, we have to let our attorneys talk about that before we can disclose that to you. It's called a Freedom of Information Act issue. But Nate just comes on the radio and tells us. I like that. Wouldn't that be great if a lot of the elected representatives would do that? Just explain it and just be very transparent about it. But it's very difficult to get information. They all, when they run for election, they all talk about, oh, they're going to, my door is always going to be open. I'm going to be transparent. You can call me anytime. Here's my phone number. Then you try to get information, like we've tried to get information on Measure K, the increase in the sales tax for Yuba County. Took 2 months. Had to have these attorneys look at the request to just know how much money of our taxpayer dollars was spent to promote Measure K. And it had to have attorneys making $150,000, $160,000 a year that also are being paid by county tax dollars ponder that for 60 days before they actually gave the information out. Well, this is the Patriot, 1410 a.m. We're up here on Mount Huth in East Yuba County. I saw someone say the other day this is the poorest county of the 58. It is not, but it is one of the poorer counties. And it's a beautiful county. Lots of natural resources, lakes, rivers, fishing, hunting, farming, some rich soil out here to grow stuff. But we got all kinds of problems, just like a lot of California counties do, particularly in the North State, where we want to separate from California, and not separate from the United States, but separate from California and become the state of Jefferson, or whatever we want to call it. So we're up here in the top of the state, where this station just by the transmitter reaches about 5 different counties up here. So we talk a lot about what's going on in Yuba Sutter because that's mostly what I know. I don't know a lot about Nevada County or Butte or Placer. But I think some problems, we all fight the same problems, like CalPERS, pensions for government workers. We all have the same problems there, right? And we're all fighting liberals that run this state that want to take and remove the Prop 13 protections on our property taxes. So there are some common enemies that we are fighting. But there are other ways you can listen to us. You can go on the website if you're out there in a fringe area and it's a little tough to listen to. Some people tell me, Lou, I can't hear you on the radio, the regular radio, but I can go out in my car and listen, and I can somehow hear it better that way. So if you go on our website, KMYCradio.com. I think Wikiman's checking to see if live stream's working. No, not working. Maybe not working. KMYCradio.com. And then, so sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes they don't get the bill paid. It's kind of like utilities out here, or the water. Sometimes we can't even take a pee out here and flush it. So there are other ways people tell us they're tuning in, and they go on their radio. They go on their phone and go to their apps and just download or look at Simple Radio. Some people say they listen to TuneIn.com and find us, TuneIn.com, and others go Streema.com. That's Streema with two E's, Streema.com. I haven't done any of that, but other people started letting us know the other day, and we thought, our live stream was down, so they were saying, we don't even fuss with that. We listen this way. We listen that way. So I got a call yesterday from one of the folks that I call him an Idaho refugee. Oh, it's working? Okay. So our live stream is working. KMYCradio.com. Let me just tell you the phone number in case you want to call and correct me or fix something out here. 742-5555. It's 530 area code. 530-742-5555. I got a call from one of the refugees that has now moved from Yuba or Sutter County, moved over to Idaho. They're moving to various cities, Hagerman, Mackay, different cities over there, small cities, towns, you might call them. And they're giving me feedback on how it's going over there. So one of them was a retired PG&E worker, and he heard me talking about the PG&E, I guess they call it a substation out there in the corner of Marysville, North Marysville. And PG&E, when they put that up, they surrounded that with trees to make it look nicer for the residents. It's right in a corner of a residential subdivision. And so one of the folks that have lived out there for many decades had contacted me, said, Lou, I've talked to PG&E, I've talked to the city, I've talked to all kinds of people, and all the trees are dying. They quit watering the trees over here. And I thought, that's just ridiculous. So I drove over there and looked at it. It looks horrible. In fact, it's a fire hazard. So anyway, I'd talked to some people in the city. I've written about it in the Territorial Dispatch. Here we got the city of Marysville, we got Cal Water, which is monopoly, and we got PG&E, which is a monopoly, and nobody can fix the trees. Nobody can water the trees. They can't figure out how to water the trees. And the other day I was over there, and water was just trickling down the driveway and out into the gutter, but not onto the trees. Just unbelievable. And so Rick, who had moved to Hagerman, he calls me on the phone this week, and he says, I used to work for PG&E, and I used to take care of all these substations all up and down, all over, like a bunch of them. That was my job, to manage and make sure everything was tuned up, maintained, da-da-da-da. And he told me the company that had the contract on the maintenance and watering and make sure everything is just no big deal. It's not complicated, like a high school kid. An Eagle Scout could have taken care of that project. And he said he called from Hagerman, Idaho, to call PG&E to talk to the dude. He knew the phone number over there and said, what's up over there, man? I used to take pride in the landscaping, and now you guys it's interesting. At my yard, I could fix the sprinkler in an hour, figure out what's wrong, go buy the part, fix it. And PG&E and Cal Water, whoever, City of Marysville, we're paying all these people $80, $90, $100, $110, $120, $130,000. All these city council people, supervisors. I talked to Mike Leahy as a supervisor. Nobody can fix the doggone water. It's just you talk about incompetence in government and monopolies that say, I got you. We're here to serve you. We're your best friend. Do you see all these Facebook ads from PG&E? Oh, yeah, we're just your neighbors. We're looking out for your good. We live right in your neighborhood. We live right in your community. And you just let amazing trees, 20, 30-foot high evergreens, just dry up and die. And Rick brought up the fact that Now those trees are a real fire hazard because of the acid in the tree and all that kind of stuff, the oils in the tree. If somebody were to catch one of those things on fire, it threatens the whole neighborhood. Anyway, so we got retired PG&E workers that now live in another state. They're actually trying to shore up the mismanagement of PG&E. Fascinating. So I noticed the other day, in fact, I can't remember whether I talked about it last week or not, but have you noticed, has anyone noticed any letdown in the federal government or anything in services? I noticed that some statistics, labor statistics for the federal government said that 16,000 workers are now no longer employed at the federal level. That's amazing to me. In other words, through attrition and through firing people, attrition just means people retired and they didn't replace them, or they laid people off, or they fired them, right? I heard Donald Trump saying at some rally yesterday that for years in the Veterans Administration, it was impossible to fire a worker no matter how bad they were. And now they've passed different laws that they can just say, you're fired, get out, because they don't take care of our veterans. I thought, hallelujah to you. So just think of this, 16,000 people. I worked it out. I was playing around with the figures. Like, say they made 70 or 80,000 a year. I think I came up with like $2 billion in salaries. Amazing. Just amazing. The size of government, just that sucking. And did you know, I don't even feel, did you miss them? 16,000? I never missed them. I slept last night. Life goes on. I could still get a head of lettuce at the grocery store, you know. Still buy my favorite stuff. Coffee, drive-thrus were working, lights were on, toilets flushed. 16,000 people. Go get a real job. So, also, another week's gone by, and I said last week a used Ford was for sale, Dianne Feinstein. You can call her for more information. Used Ford, that's Christine Blasey or Blasey or Blowhard or whatever you want to call her, Ford. The liar they paid, little political hooker they paid to go in and try to trash Judge Kavanaugh. She just got used up by the political system of the Democrats, and you know, some people are really freaking out about all these things going on. And I said, you know something, we're not just going to like vote a couple people into office and things are going to get better. Things a lot of times got to get worse to get better, because they got to get really sick of stuff before people will vote. Like, for instance, we had to do 8 years of the Mocha Man, Barack Obama, Barry, or Brenda, wherever you want to call him. I can't figure out who's the male in that relationship. Michael, Michelle, Brenda, Barry, Barack. I don't know who they are over there. But we had to go through 8 years of torment with those people before people got so PO'd that they were so desperate, they were sick of politics, and they voted a businessman in called Donald Trump. So in California, I wonder how bad it's going to have to get. How bad? So I wanted to mention a couple of our sponsors. One of our listeners was texting me. He said he just somehow realized that we actually have to pay to be on the air here. He said, I can't believe you guys have to pay to be on the air. Welcome to the world out at KNYC. You got to pay to do anything around here. And so, but we're thankful for the Yuba Sutter Constitutional Republicans helping us out, and they help us stay on the air. And if you haven't heard of those guys, they are the new and improved version of conservatives around here. They're activists, and they actually are getting stuff done and taking stands on things and confronting people and putting pressure on people and trying to help people they think are right get elected. So they have a headquarters at 441 Bridge Street, Suite E in Yuba City. That's over by the Cookie Tree. And somebody was on Facebook the other day and said, what hours are they over there? I need some stuff. I need some signs. So I was able to post their hours because I happen to be familiar with them because we do this. We do the spot for them on the radio. So from 5 to 8 at night, Monday through Saturday, they're over there where you can pick up some materials, put up a yard sign, do something, right? And then they're conducting some campaign events over there for different candidates they support. If you want to talk to one of them, Tammy Reichard is the chapter treasurer. She's 701-2845, 701-2845, and you can, if you are confused or you can't find something or you're trying to figure out what to do, call Tammy. She's very bright and she can help you. Okay? So we thank them. Also, they are on tomorrow from 1 to 3, a group of them called the Yuba Sutter Political Spotlight, and they're highlighting local races and also races up and down the state that they're very interested in. Now, if you think, honestly, folks, if you think that things are going to change in California with you just going to work every day and getting your cup of coffee and doing the same old, get up on the same side of the bed, use the same toothpaste, same pair of slippers, take a pee at the same time in the morning, just do same old, and things are going to change, you are sadly mistaken. So I would suggest to you that if you're not registered to vote, that you find yourself either down to the Republican headquarters, they could probably register you there, or get over to a county clerk's office. I stopped in and dropped off my ballot. I voted and dropped it off at the Yuba County Government Center. You can drop your absentee ballots off there. You don't even have to go through the metal detector. You can go around it, drop your ballot off, and then I had somebody that gave me a form that they were registering to vote. They said, Lou, will you take care of this for me, get it to the right people? And even though it was a Sutter County form, they took it at Yuba County. They said, Lou, we'll take care of it for you. So very easy to register to vote. Take you a couple minutes. You can walk in there, fill one right at Yuba County or Sutter County clerk's office, and you have a few days to do that. It's the 13th today, so you have about 8 or 9 days left to register to vote, but do that. Listen, some people think that, and I think correctly, that if we hadn't have elected Trump, we may have passed a point of no return in terms of our rights and our Constitution and things, the American way of life that many of us hold dear. So others are saying that this election, I don't think they're crying wolf either. They say this election is equally as important or maybe more important because if we being the conservatives, if we lose the House or the Senate, particularly the House, but I would say the House or the Senate, we're in deep trouble because we lose some of the impact of having a president like Trump. And with the Democrats now encouraging people to riot and destroy things and just cause havoc. They just want to be disruptive. That to have the House taken over by the Democrats, they will begin to try to impeach the President of the United States. So you might think, well, what can I do? I'll give you a couple things you can do. One, you can vote. And you think, well, the folks, the congressman from up here isn't going to be threatened. Well, there are several congressmen and women in California. That means they're going to go back and serve in Washington. There's a handful of them that are being threatened because Democrats from around the country are pouring money, just like they're pouring money into the Texas Senate race with Ted Cruz and Beto O'Rourke. They're targeting races around the country to see if they can overturn folks and change the complexion of the Senate and the House of Representatives. So you can give money to races that are being highly contested to see if you can help in that way. I don't give money to the Republican National Committee. I just help specific races. But you need to vote, and you need to vote locally as well, because there's a lot of bad decisions being made in a local fashion as well. For instance, you could vote yes on Proposition 6, and that's the repeal of the recent increase in gas taxes and DMV fees. That proposition is being lied about. There's $30 million or more in campaign funds to stop that from passing. And they're saying things like, if that doesn't pass, all the road work in California will stop. That is 100% false. That's just completely false. They're going to say that to threaten you and scare you. There is plenty of money in the budget of the state of California. The current budget is around $200 billion. And there's plenty of money there. The problem has been that we have a governor that thinks that you're cheap and you're what he calls Californians freeloaders. In other words, he thinks that we don't pay near enough taxes. So he wasn't willing to take any of the money that came into that $200 billion and spend it towards roads to fix them. In other words, he said, if you want to fix roads, then you tax yourselves and increase your DMV fees. So they passed that at the legislature passed that with a 2/3 vote and inflicted that upon the voters. And so voters rebelled by recalling a fellow named Todd Newman down in Southern California that was a key player to pass that tax. They recalled him already. And then they put this Prop 6 on the ballot. There's plenty of money in the current budget without the new taxes and the new DMV fees. We pay some of the highest taxes and highest DMV fees in the nation and have some of the worst roads. Now think about it. There's money in the budget to fix the roads. They just refuse to allot the money. And we have some of the most wasteful spending and bureaucratic boondoggles with Caltrans. It costs us like 2 and 3 times as much per mile of road to repair it as it does other states. Why is that? It's unions and bureaucracy. So there's plenty of money. And if you vote yes on Prop 6, that forces legislators to fix the roads with the money. In other words, I say you get taxed twice to fix the roads once. So I'm into being taxed once to fix the roads once, the right way. And what you can do throughout the state, who's ever listening, you can vote yes on Prop 6, then tell the senator or the assemblyman in your area, fix the roads or we'll recall you or we'll vote you out, right? That's the key. That's what you do. Just replace those people who will not do what they're supposed to be doing. Not run in fear and hide your head under the pillow, right? So vote yes on Prop 6. That will save you about $700 or $800 per year. And this road tax that they increased last year is a 10-year tax. That's if you save $700 a year, that's $7,000 over 10 years. That's a lot of money. And maybe if you don't miss that money, maybe you could just send it to me. My box number, my P.O. box number is Box 88. If you got extra money laying around, just send it over here. You can help pay for this radio show. Also, we're going to talk about Measure K today. That's in Yuba County. A lot of you, I know up in Butte County, up in Oroville, you're faced with a 1% tax in the city. We have one here in the county. Outside the cities of Wheatland and Marysville, there's a Measure K, and everything's going to go up 1%, from 7.25 to 8.25. We'll be right back. back. This is Lou Benninger. We're here Saturday. We're live, and we're going to be here till noon. And here with the Wikiman Santos Vigil, and we're just plowing through some topics here this morning, talking about the election. It's like right on top of us. A huge election. It's a huge election for Yuba County, probably every county out there. You got a big election, and over in Oroville, you defeated your 1% sales tax increase before. Maybe you can do it again. We have defeated it once in the city of Marysville. Then we lost the second time. I'm going to talk a little bit about that. And now we're facing another one, Measure K. All these are just stopgap measures because politicians have began for many years have had an incestuous relationship with government employee unions. They gave them what they want. They took them from being government employees. Used to have the benefit of a secure job. They would make a little less maybe than the private sector back, 4 or 5 decades ago. But they had a secure job. They usually had some retirement benefits. So it kind of all evened out, right? Because in the private sector, you can get laid off. Companies can be bought out. Things can change. It's dynamic. If you run your own business, that's a lot of extra work. You're working night and day. But in the government sector, jobs were secure, and et cetera, et cetera. Unions got involved. They unionized, and now they are some of the highest paid jobs in the country. And when you work for government, you can pick up 70 to 80% of your salary until you drop dead. So you work 20 or 30 years, but you get paid for 40, 50 years. That's just the way it is if you live that long. So the overall pay, you get paid forever, as opposed to the private sector where you set money aside and you live on whatever you have benefited from in your investments. In the government sector, you are guaranteed a designated pay for the rest of your life. It's an impossible system. It's a corrupted system. It's actually managed. The CalPERS is managed by the union, and so it's a broken system. It's corrupted. It's broken. They just gave the CEO of the CalPERS an $84,000 bonus and a 4% increase. She's making nearly $400,000 a year. The governor of the state earns $202,000. It just makes you wonder. What in the world is going on? And so what's happening is CalPERS comes back to the counties, the cities, the agencies that are a part of it and says, we don't have enough money to cover your retirees, so you need to give us more out of your general fund. It has nothing to do with how much money is being contributed. They're contributing a certain amount of money to CalPERS out of these agencies, counties, cities, etc., but they're not contributing enough, and so they want more in order to fund these fantastic pensions and health benefits for the rest of people's lives. So that's having an impact on the cities, but no, if they put something on the ballot and they say, we want to raise your taxes 1 or 2%, 1.5%, whatever, and it's going to go to government employee pensions, people would vote against that because they think they're unfair and they think they're outrageous. And most people don't even have a pension. They just set money aside in savings, or they have a piece of real estate that they're going to live off in their retirement. So they would vote against that. So instead of pitching it honestly that way, what they say is, well, this is just for police and fire, but they deceive the voters. And that's exactly what's happening in Yuba County. I can't speak for up in Oroville, but that's what's up and down the state according to the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association. You can go to their website at hjta.org. According to Howard Jarvis, who they track all these campaigns up and down the state, typically government lies to the taxpayer. And in the case of Yuba County, they're actually using, I don't think the city of Marysville used our own tax money, but the county of Yuba has actually used probably from $150 to $200, probably before it's over, they will accumulate an expense of $200,000 out of our tax money that we gave to run our county but they actually use that to propagandize and deceive us, deceive some of us, to voting for taxing ourselves more, giving more up of your wealth. I want you to think of any area. I want you can text me or you can call Santos at 742-5555 and tell us any area of your life that's not taxed. And my phone number is 713-1838. If you come up with any area that you can't attach a tax to or some kind of government directive, government's either controlling or taxing every aspect of your life. So they're taking a couple $100,000. They hired public relations marketing firms to come in to convince you they're not going door to door handing out a flyer that not only says this is what we think we're going to spend the money on, we're promising. This is what we're promising. That's illegal. They should be off. If they wanted to use this for police and fire, they should have done what they call a special tax that takes 2/3 vote, 2/3 majority vote, as opposed to 50% plus one, a majority vote. Howard Jarvis sent a letter to the Board of Supervisors saying, we believe our attorneys, it's just not some guy or gal, it's just attorneys saying you are violating Proposition 218 restrictions on how you go about raising taxes. The supervisors ignored that. 5 supervisors, and it should be their employee, Robert Bendorf, but actually he's the boss. Instead of us having representatives that run Robert Bendorf, we actually have a hired person that runs the Board of Supervisors in Yuba County, which is not constitutionally correct, but that's just the way it's been going on. So what we have in Yuba County is we have a shortage of funds. That's because the county has been mismanaged. If you think it's just some helter-skelter happenstance that all of a sudden we ran out of money, that is not true. Neither is it true when you run out of money in your own personal bank account. You made some wrong decisions and you did a goof, right? And you have been spending more than you're making. That's a bad sign when you're spending more than you're making. But instead of cutting back, laying people off, like Trump has been trying to shrink government, and they're doing it in a number of ways. They're even holding back on some raises, except for the military, etc. So instead of cutting back, cutting salaries, supervisors are making over $80,000. I had a call this week from a city councilman in Yuba City, and he says, Lou, people are saying that you are saying that Sutter County supervisors are making Sutter County, and I said, they're claiming, this guy was claiming I said that Sutter County supervisors are making $90,000 a year. Now, lots of people say lots of things about what I say. So if you want to know what I say, you can listen to this show recorded. You can go back and listen at One Eye Blind Media channel on YouTube. Just go to YouTube and go One Eye Blind Media and then look for Live with Lou, and you can listen to it yourself and hear it firsthand instead of second, third, fourth hand. So I explained to the city council member, I said, well, I do talk about salaries, but I think I know what people make in Sutter County if they're a supervisor. And but I have been talking about Yuba County. I think the guy just got confused. It's easy to be, humans get confused. So, but in Yuba County, they have raised their salaries dramatically back in the early 2000s when there was a lot of money coming in from housing subdivisions in South Yuba County. And they doubled their salary. They thought that somehow they were rainmakers. They thought they were making all this this prosperity happen in Yuba County. But then when it stopped, they didn't stop. They didn't if it's, in other words, when going is good, they take credit. When going is bad, they don't take credit for that. That's politicians, right? They blame that on somebody else. So they doubled their salary, and not only that, but they attached automatic increases to the judges are paid by the state of California today. So their salaries are set and their increases are set by the state of California. They get automatic increases. So now in, I think it was 2002, the supervisors passed an ordinance attaching their incremental raises. They could still give a bigger raise, but they attached the incremental raises to the judges' raises. So people have been debating lately, hey, we heard the supervisors gave themselves a raise. Well, they did get a raise. They get constant raises. And people, there's been a debate over whether the employees got raises. Well, they get automatic raises too. These contracts with the union happened over a 3-year period. In other words, a 3-year duration, and they get automatic raises in there whether they're doing a good job or not. Did you know that in government you just get a raise if you're breathing? If you're drop dead, then it's over. But if you're breathing and you have a government job, you get a raise. So Measure K is 1% tax increase on everything you buy in the county. Or if you go out of the county and buy anything that has to go through the Department of Motor Vehicles, then that's taxed according to where you live, not where you buy it. So if you buy it in Texas or Nevada, unless you're registered over there at a false address at your friend's business, if you're registered and if you're going to bring it back, you get a really good deal out in Outer Slombodia on a car you want or a truck you want. You bring it back here, you're going to register it here, you're going to get taxed at the higher tax rate. So I was just looking up. I was wondering the other day, have you ever thought about how many cars you ever bought in your life? I was thinking about that the other day. And so I was looking it up. I said, I wonder how many cars the average person buys in their life. And so one spot said 13 cars. And then another outfit said 9.4 cars. So over the next 10 years, if this tax goes through, like in Marysville, I live in Marysville now, the only way I can get around that extra 1% tax the next time I buy a car is if I register it over in another county, if I registered in Yuba City, or if I registered in another county where it's a lower tax and I picked up some reason to go over, I can move, right? But if I buy a $30,000 car, an extra 1% is going to cost me $300 just because I lived in the wrong place. So you out there in Yuba County, or if you buy a big piece of equipment and you buy it in Yuba County, like a tractor or something, you won't have to register with the DMV. But if you buy a tractor in Yuba County or a piece of equipment for somebody, you have to pay tax on it. That's a lot of money if it's an expensive piece of equipment. Or you're buying a truck, right? A tractor trailer rig, $100,000. That's a lot. That's an extra $1,000 right there that you have to pay. So when you think about it, or if you decide to build a house and you're buying supplies from in Yuba County or in the city of Marysville, you're going to be paying extra 1%. That's a lot, and it's a 10-year tax. Now, what tradition tells us is that once a tax is raised, very, very seldom after 10 years will it ever go back down, because politicians will say we just can't live without it, right? And they're going to scare the hell out of you saying, if you reduce this tax, we're not going to be able to respond to your 911 calls, right? Do CPR yourself. Arrest the burglar yourself. Hire Monty Hecker over Elite Universal Security to protect yourself, because we're not going to be able to do that. So Measure K, they're being lying about it. Now, it's crazy that Gary, the gift that keeps on giving, Bradford, he's the guy that's running his mouth on the Board of Supervisors. And so one day he's saying, somebody said, well, it's 1 penny on the dollar. It's a penny tax. And he said, no, it isn't. Tell me who's saying that. I want to go beat him up. And then on that, the flyer they just put out says it's a 1 penny tax, like 1 penny per dollar. So there's a lot of ways to look at it. It's 1% increase on the sales tax, right? So we're paying 7.25 right now. It's going to go up to 8.25. It's going to affect everything you buy in Yuba County or Marysville, right? Because Marysville's already got the 1% increase. If you escape to Yuba City or any other county that has lower tax, you can buy your stuff over there, except anything that has to be registered. Like if you're going to buy cars, you think over the next 10 years, you think, oh, I think we'll probably as a family pick us up another car, and I got to buy my teenager a car, or I got two teenagers coming up. That's 3 cars. You're going to add up a lot of money. So is that the only way out? No, it isn't the only way out, is to raise taxes. You could actually cut salaries, right? Some of the top people in Yuba County are making $250,000 a year. Somebody said, Lou, people are starting to repeat what you're saying up in the foothills. They're saying, they're commenting the fact that I said with this CalPERS thing, with the defined, what they call a defined benefit retirement, what that means is Sheriff Durford just retired. And before that, Sheriff Black retired. And before that, Sheriff Tyndall retired. And I think it was Jim Grant retired before that. Before him, Gary Miller retired. And I think Grant, I don't know whether Grant's alive, but I think we got 4 or 5 sheriffs that are all being paid right now. And then we have to pay Wendell Anderson because he's actually working. So now that the taxpayers, you think, oh, well, this is our budget to pay for the law enforcement, but wait a minute. We're paying for 4 or 5. You think, well, isn't that over? Didn't we set money aside for all those guys and gals? And then now they're just using that money? No, that's not how it works. We're paying out of the general fund to still fund all those sheriffs. It's impossible, people. There is no way we can continue doing this. There's no, and the longer people live, the worse it is. So what are you going to do? I know there's people, like I know all those sheriffs I just mentioned. I know them personally. But in one way, it'd be a benefit if everybody dropped dead, because then the cost would go down, right? Because we're funding their retirement. It isn't set aside somewhere. It's like a Social Security thing. They say, I remember one of the assemblymen was talking. It was one of the first meetings I ever attended. Vic Fazio was up here, liberal Democrat. And he was promising all these older people. At that time, I was in my 30s, and I think I was the only young person there, if you want to call that young. And I was sitting there listening to him, and he was lying to these senior citizens, saying there's a Social Security trust fund, and your money's all safe right there. And I thought, you're a liar. I thought, you are just a damn liar. There is no trust fund, and you guys are spending that money for all kinds of stuff back there, and all you're doing is passing through the money that we're paying right now, young people paying in right now, paying those big Social Security taxes, are paying for old people right now. And you are blowing the money. There's no fund where all that money that people paid in for 30, 40 years of work is sitting there gaining interest or being invested. It's the same with CalPERS. CalPERS has mismanaged the trust fund for years. There's been money stolen, people paying off people, bribes. It's just absolutely nobody in their right mind would allow the government, if you say, who would you like to invest your money? You need to set aside money. Who would you like to invest your money? The government or a good financial advisor that you would do some research on and pick? A private entity? Or would you like the government to do it? When it's all politically run. It's crazy. So vote no on Measure K. We have supervisors. I'd vote against any supervisor that put that on the ballot. That would be all of them. Right now, we got 2 supervisors that voted to. All 5 voted to put that on the ballot. They unanimously put it on the ballot. Here's what they're going to tell you. Well, we just wanted to let the people vote. We just wanted to let the people have their say, right? We need to make some changes, folks. If we just keep doing the same thing, the people that are in there have let you know how they want to run the county of Yuba or Sutter or Butte or Nevada, and you just have to think, okay, is this working out good, or do we need to make some radical changes? So you need to think about that. Now, people have been texting me and emailing me and sending messages on Facebook. They want Lou's picks. So go ahead. If you already asked me and you didn't get it, that means I dropped the ball. So ask me once more. So some of you wanted me to mail it through the snail mail, and some of you I've emailed, etc. So pardon me if you didn't get it, and you asked, it may have fallen through Lou's cracks. So my phone number is 713-1838, 530 area code, 713-1838. Just don't say send it to me. Put your email in there. I need to email it to you, okay, if you want my picks. I don't care whether you vote like I say. I'm just one person. I just have one opinion. I am not God, and I'm not picking a horse race. I'm just, if I were you, if I was in your area, I'm not covering all areas. I did some for Sutter and Yuba County. I live in Yuba County. So that's how I voted. I already voted. So you can, it's my opinion. Don't bother getting back to me like you got a different opinion. Just vote your opinion. I'm happy that you're voting. So we're going to be back here in a minute, and you're listening to Live with Lou. This is The Patriot, KMYC. We're happy you're here. If you're not here, I hope you're having a good day. Second hour here of a 3-hour stint on Saturday, the 13th of October. Wikiman Santos Vigil and I are here, as is our routine. Most Saturdays, we're live. And this is The Patriot. We're up here on Mount Huth in eastern Yuba County. Hopefully one of the state of Jefferson to be. And we're talking about the taxes and raising taxes. Politicians just think they always have a great idea and then they want us to pay for it. I'm all for great ideas. I just wish politicians would come out of their own pocket. So my suggestion for Yuba County supervisors is that they cut their salaries at least by 50%. They claim they don't make over $80,000, but they don't like to count the health insurance and the retirement and the per diem and all the little $50 here, $100 here, da-da-da-da-da. They don't like to count that, and they don't think that they should have to sacrifice to make ends meet in the county that they are setting all the policy decisions, and they write the checks of all the county expenses. They okay every expense, but they don't want to take any responsibility for that and cut anybody's taxes. They just want to cut anybody's salary. They just want to raise taxes. So that's what's going on here with Measure K. It's all going to be sucked up with pensions. And so you think, oh, well, they're promising they're going to use every dime for this reason. Now, here, let me help you with a term that's kind of an odd term, because when I always think of fungible, I think of fungus. But it doesn't have anything to do with fungus. Fungible, when money's fungible, that means that you can move it around. So let me just say this. Just pick a figure in your mind and just say, that's what we're going to spend for police and fire, okay? And then they have a tax, and then they say, okay, we were collecting this new tax stream for police and fire. That we promise we'll use it for police and fire. So on the books, they may show it going to police and fire. However, the funds that were already going to police and fire can be moved to welfare, or can be moved to public works, or can be moved to secretaries, or to paint the building, or whatever. In other words, all the money can be moved around. Nothing is fixed. So they can just say, oh, yeah, we used every nickel of that money, or we used a great percentage of that money on police and fire, but then you think, well, how come that budget didn't go up by that much? Well, because they took some of that other police and fire money away. Now, how do I know that? Because it's a common practice in budgeting. And it's what they did in Yuba County when there was a time when we didn't have any immigration folks living at the Yuba County Jail, and now we receive almost $100 a day for them, per person, per bed. There was a time when we didn't have any of that, and only people locked up were local people that did crimes. And we were able to fund the sheriff's department. I want you to think about that. We were able to meet that budget need. But then when we started to get all that federal money, the money is fungible. It can be moved around. So they started moving money that normally out of our tax dollars went to public service, public safety. They moved that money elsewhere. And they told the sheriff's department to live on that immigration money. And because it's fungible. So this thing of all the money is going to go over there. Even if it does, they can move the other money that was already going over there to something else. Now, I got a newspaper here, a page out of the newspaper, the Appeal Democrat, and this is Sunday, October 7th. And they were describing the Marysville City Council had a forum where the different candidates are interviewed. So they had Bruce Buttacavoli, Brad Hudson, and Chris Pedigo. They were being interviewed. And so I got a kick out of their, and I don't mean this sarcastically, I'm interested in their comments. So it says, what's your assessment of the sales tax increase? Is it being used as it should be? Good question. Hudson said he wasn't supportive of the sales tax at first, but has changed his feelings now that it's performing much better than anticipated. So I don't know whether Brad thought, oh, if it's not going to do any good, I'm against it. But I'm not quite sure where he's going there. But he said it's hard to say how funds are being used. Isn't that interesting? It's hard to track funds, isn't it? Just what I was saying. He says Brad was a firefighter for many years. And he still, I think, teaches in the fire academy some. He said it's hard to say how funds are being used without looking at the city's books. Most city council people can't even find their way around the city books. And stuff can be hidden. Call in sometime and ask Nate Black if money can be hidden in a city budget or county budget. Hudson said if elected, he will make sure to hold the city accountable. I want you to hold that thought. Hold the city or the county accountable. How would you do that? You're going to fire Robert Bendorf. You're going to fire Marty Brown, who's the head of the city. So Buttacavoli said the city recently conducted a sales tax audit and found it brought in almost double of what was projected, more than the $2 million. He said that's significant. He said he's not privy. Interesting. He's not privy to how the funds have been used, but believes the city will make the information public. Now, I thought, now maybe I'm wrong, but I thought that they were going to automatically make all those figures public, and I thought there was going to be a citizens committee to oversee that money. Some people say I was dreaming. He said in any case, officials need to make sure the funds are being directed properly. Now that is a big old make sure right there. Then Pedigo, he's the incumbent. He said the city, now this is interesting. Chris Pedigo said the city has fulfilled much of its promises for Measure C. Now, if you remember, the promises for Measure C was to help police and fire. That was a big deal. So he says promises like bringing on another police officer, purchasing new parks equipment. I don't remember that part, Chris, parks equipment. And refunding the fire department. He said the city has spent the money wisely and done exactly what they told taxpayers before the measure was passed. Now, I appreciate Chris's perspective and that he's paying attention, but I would say I would like to make that critique myself if I could see the figures, right? And so Chris said he has fought. Now, this is interesting. Now, I know that being a writer myself, that the way you say things may be a little bit different than the way things were exactly said. Even if you're quoting somebody, you may not get the word exactly right. So he said, according to the writer in this article, that Chris has fought to get the city to release the report so citizens can view it, which he believes will be coming out soon. Now, this is a common expression among politicians. I have fought for this. I have fought for that. Normally, when I think of fighting, I think of socking somebody in the face. But fighting, I have fought. Now, that I don't know how much fighting he's had to do to get that report out I thought that was just going to come out automatically to inform the citizens, because they promised, if you'll just give us this money, we're going to be totally transparent and we're going to use this all for police and fire. Now, that's what we were told. Now, what we were saying back to them was, because there's no legal mandate to use it for police and fire, you're liable to go use that for parks or hire a maintenance man or something, right? So it's interesting that a city council person has to make the statement that he has fought to get the city to release a report. Now, I don't think the author of this, Jake Abbott, I don't think Jake would have used that term fought unless Chris used that term fought. Fought means to me that he's brought it up more than once or twice or 3 times or 4 times, and it hasn't happened, right? It isn't like it didn't happen automatically, because none of these candidates have seen the report. All of them are saying, well, we just believe in them. Well, we think. Well, we assume. Well, Chris says he thinks the city has fulfilled much of its promises. That's the problem, Chris. When the taxes get spent and people are out there trying to keep their kids off drugs, keep the same marriage partner, keep their job, keep their car fixed, they just don't have time to snoop around City Hall and ask and fight to see a report that hasn't been made. So it's interesting that the city of Marysville is a couple years ahead of the county of Yuba, because they already passed their tax, and now they're trying to explain how they're spending it, but no report has come out. Isn't that interesting? Now, that tax was passed under the previous administrator, Walter Munchheimer, and so now we've gone through him, and now we have her, and we have a new administrator of the city, and yet he said, I'm fighting to get that report out. Now, why would you have to fight to get a report that was promised, that there was going to be this complete transparency, and even the county of Yuba said, we're going to have a committee of citizens that are going to oversee and looking at every single Lincoln penny that we're spending. Now, I would just like to say that no matter what council or group or committee is overseeing something, it doesn't mean jack diddly, because if they throw a hissy fit over how that money is being spent, they will be dismissed. That's it. And they'll say, or we will respectfully, if I was on the committee, they say, we will respectfully disagree with Lou Benninger, right? Because we think we did a great job. We're sorry that he sees it that way. That's what they would say. That it has no impact at all. So that's that. Now, I don't know whether you noticed this, but the judge in Sutter County, Brian Aronson, who is at the center of the storm, the eye of the storm of controversy over the grand jury, who stopped the grand jury report. I don't know in the history of Sutter County of putting out reports whether the grand jury report has ever been taken hostage and hidden. But Brian Aronson did that because there's something so awful in that report that you and I, you know how something, you know where something comes on your TV, and if you watch TV and you cover your kids' eyes, or you cover their ears, or whatever, or you switch the channel, right? So he's our daddy. Judge Aronson is our daddy, and he is protecting us parentally because something is too provocative for us to see in that grand jury report. So prior to that, in 2016, Jason Parker, who was the chief investigator of the attorney's office, district attorney's office in Sutter County, he got the idea to do a sting on sexual predators. And they started throwing out the net, and they had so many people respond that they couldn't even handle them all. So they, like fish, you kind of throw some back. And so there were so many of them, they picked and chose the most egregious cases, like the older cases, and they let like the teenagers go, but they went after the older cases where they thought this is really funky, where you got a guy 20, 30, 40, 50 years of age going after a girl that's 9 or 14 years of age. So they arrested up almost 40 people And when they started going to court with him, people complained. They said, man, that's awful low bail for a guy that wanted to molest this girl. But people complained about Judge Aronson. Well, that was the first thing that was a concern. And he's one of the senior members, if not the senior member, on the court. He was appointed to the job when Timothy Evans retired. So that happened. And then he became, we had Judge Heckman, who is probably the weakest link on the board. When people get elected to the board, you may get a good judge, or get elected to the bench. You may get a good judge, and you may get just a popular judge that doesn't have the intellectual zip that it takes to be a judge. They're generally pretty smart folks, right? And Judge Heckman couldn't hang with the grand jury, so Brian Aronson had to take it over. It got too controversial because there was so much funky stuff going on in the county of Sutter with the district attorney and the county council, and that when they started to interview people, it got gnarly, and it was going to cause a big old stink. So they thought, wait a minute. We can't let this out. So Brian Aronson said, we're going to have to change the grand jury report. So the grand jury, just a couple days before the end of the year, when they would be done with their job after serving for 1 year, they said, listen, if you're going to edit that report, Judge Aronson, then you need to sign it. Because the grand jury members all sign the report that they draft. They all sign it. And they refused to sign his report. So what they said, well, the grand jury refused to put out a report this year. That's a lie. Now, you'd think attorneys would be more honest than that, wouldn't you? So we got district attorney, we got a county council, and we heard that they threatened the grand jury that if you put out that report, then we are not going to defend you. The county will not pay for your defense if somebody sues you for slander or something like that. Well, that was against the law because grand jury members are to be treated like employees unless they run off the rail and start doing things that are outside their scope of business. But looking at county government and city government is in their scope of business, and Judge Aronson just didn't like what they were coming up with. So he has prevented the report from being public, right? Now, some people have it, but they won't leak it because I told them, leak on me and I'll put it out. So in the midst of all this, last year, or in June of this year, there was a primary, and nobody ran against Judge Aronson. So Judge Aronson, he could have decided not to run and said, hey, prior to the June primary, I'm going to finish out my year, but I'm not going to run again. And then that would allow two or three attorneys to run for that spot. But he didn't do that. He deceived everybody. Unless he's dying of cancer or something. That's why I wrote an article in the paper. I said maybe he's got a health problem. But if he doesn't, he deceived everybody. And what he did was he manipulated the system. Now, what he did was he said he gave everybody the understanding. In other words, he put his name in the hat, I'm going to run again. And so nobody ran against him because attorneys don't like to run against judges that haven't run off the rails, because if they run against them and lose, which they probably would, then they got to go before them and try a case, and they may think they won't get a fair deal, right? That's the truth of it. You think, oh, these people are all impartial. Well, everybody's affected by everything. So Brian Aronson put his name in the hat that I'm going to run for office. Nobody ran against him, so he automatically became a judge again for 6 more years, which starts this January. So the other day he says, oh, no, I'm not going to actually serve that 6 years. So that means that Governor Brown will appoint a liberal judge to the Sutter County bench. It's just all manipulation and fraud. It's manipulating the system to take away the people's right to choose their own justice, right? Judges are to be elected. Sarah Heckman was elected. She ran for office against 5 or 6 other people. And so to me, if unless Judge Aronson does not have a health problem or there's a family emergency that he decided he can't, he didn't even get to serve 1 day of that new term. He quit before the term even starts. In other words, just a few months ago, he says, I want to serve again for another 6 years starting January 1, 2019. And once he got the job, because he didn't have, right, if you don't have any primary opponent, you got the job. He turns around and says, well, I'm going to retire. After he's got a 6-year stint ahead of him. Unbelievable. Total contrary to the spirit of our democratic process. So that's 2 in a row, dude. Grand jury report, and now we're going to end up stuck with somebody that Governor Brown picks instead of our Sutter County residents. Total ripoff. Well, that was in the same paper that I just covered the city council on the how they're handling the taxes from what they call Measure C, which is their version of Measure K. Right above it was Yuba City takes proactive approach to CalPERS. Now, I told you whether you are in Butte, Colusa, Nevada, Placer, you're all facing this CalPERS fiasco. And the city council of Yuba City is probably in the best shape of all the local jurisdictions on CalPERS because they had enough money in reserves to front CalPERS $750,000, and they claim that it's going to save $200,000 in interest charges over the next 6 years. Do you ever wonder why government is constantly borrowing money? It cannot live within its means. It cannot. So CalPERS is not only collecting and spending on pensions the money that's coming in, it's actually charging the jurisdiction's interest on the money that they can't pay on time. Isn't that interesting? They make promises to employees that they can't fulfill, so they borrow the money. They're just borrowing. I just see we have a Marysville Joint Unified School District, again, they're putting another bond on the ballot. I said, and lose picks, I said, vote no on it. Why? Because there's many reasons to vote no. It's just like, hey, how many bonds are we going to have? Have you ever looked at you in Yuba County, how many bonds you have? You got Oliver's public utility bonds. You have 2 or 3 Yuba College bonds. You got 2 or 3 Marysville Joint Unified School District bonds. We're going to be paying on those for 20 or 30 years. All the money that goes to schools, none of it goes into capital improvements. And you know why? You ever wonder why building a school building is so expensive? Because there's a racist act called the Davis-Bacon Act. Go ahead and look it up, and you can see how its foundation was. The foundation of the bill was to keep blacks from competing because they were working for lower wages, and they were competing on government jobs against the unions. So the unions had them pass the Davis-Bacon Act to set the union standard of pay as the standard of pay on any government job. So when you go to build a school building, it costs like 20-30% more for that building than it would be for another commercial building down the street built in the same standards, because you don't have to pay government what they call prevailing wages. That just means that the union is controlling the show on wages. So when you have to build a school building, instead of using the most efficient, effective way to build that building and the most safe way, we pay through the nose. We pay a premium to put up any kind of government building, whether it's Caltrans, city building, anything that has to do with government. It's under the Davis-Bacon Act, which is the whole foundation of that act was to prevent blacks, minorities, from competing in the market. Now it's just a control measure for the union to assure that they get the jobs. So I think we're going to take another break, right? So we're finished half the show. We're going to be here for another hour and a half if you want to hang around.
Did you know that Article 4, Section 3 of the U.S. Constitution lays out the framework for the state of Jefferson's plan to split California? A state can be formed from the land within another state if the state legislature and Congress approve it with a simple majority vote. 51% is all it takes. Your vote doesn't count in Northern California. California is broken and the time has come for 51. Please visit soj51.net and donate now to show your support.
Check out the Territorial Dispatch. Papers are weekly and can be obtained free at distribution or by mail through subscription. It's the only locally owned and operated newspaper in the region. The paper is the rest of the story. And also check out the E-Territorial. It's an online version of the Territorial Dispatch which features local news and events for the Yuba Sutter, Colusa, and Nevada County areas. You'll also find daily and breaking news updates, current traffic, and weather information, along with a calendar of local events. Visit the E-Territorial at eterritorial.com.
Well, you made it halfway through. So, congratulations. So, we're here, out here at Mount Huth, Santos and I, and I was just talking to you about the city council and the accountability of the money, the extra money that's been coming in out of your pocket and mine. And I got a text from Stephanie McKenzie, who's also on the city council, along with Chris Pedigo. And I was reading what Chris said about the money, how it's being spent, as if it's sort of a mystery, but he was sure it was being spent well. And he was fighting for a report to come out. And here's what Stephanie says. She says, hi, with a little smiley face. If you know Stephanie, that's how she looks all the time, a little smiley face. So anyway, she says the Measure C expenditures are shown in last year's budget in various areas where it was used. And this year's budget, so it's been available to the public the whole time. That's interesting. So, and then she goes on to say it's organized in one place in the current budget. I guess that's the new budget. So it's easier to view on one page. So, I don't know if you have ever looked at a city budget or a county budget, raise your hand. I've glanced at some parts of them trying to figure out something about the city or county, but I have never looked through the entire budget. In fact, I think some elected leaders don't even look through the budgets themselves. I mean, we know that at the Senate level of the United States of America, they don't even read the bills, right? So it's nice to know that somehow the Measure C expenditures, she says they're shown in last year's budget. I don't know how, if I looked at it, whether it's obvious that they were Measure C's expenditures as opposed to just expenditures. But she said it's in this current budget, it's organized in one place in the current budget, so it's easier to view on one page. So maybe I'll take a look, and maybe we'll talk about it sometime. But I guess I don't know what Chris was talking about then in this article. He said he's been fighting to have this report brought out. So I guess he was hoping for a special report. That's what I was kind of hoping for, is a special report. I don't know how many people actually that are citizens. Certainly when I was on the board of Yuba County Office of Education, I looked at the budget page by page. But I would never expect a citizen to do that because they just don't have the time. So things like promises to raise taxes and we're going to be totally accountable to you for them, I don't know whether just a 20, 30, 40, 50, 100-page budget and expect people to look through that would work. I appreciate the information, though, from Stephanie. So if you want to look at the budget, probably you could go on the City of Marysville's website, and it's there for you, and you could see if you can find in the current budget, which would be maybe 2018, 2019, the current budget, or if it's not there, 2017, 18. But she said all on one page, so that would be a fun page to look at, I think, and a reassuring page if indeed all the money went towards the areas that you were hoping for. I wanted to mention before I went farther today that another group that supports us here is Monty Hecker's business, Elite Universal Security. More and more I run into their people all over town because I think businesses are finding that they can't count on law enforcement to protect them. And I don't mean that as a negative on law enforcement at all. In fact, this last Thursday night, we had 2 detectives from Marysville Police come over. We had Magana and Lemire come and speak to the TIP people, and they may have done one of the top presentations ever in the 24 years of TIP, according to some of the old-timers in TIP. They were very fun, and what we wanted was a refresher course on how we can work better with law enforcement. And also, the mission of law enforcement and the stresses on them, and so we better understand their jobs so we can know what our job is to mesh with them well. And so I want to give a shout out for Nelson Magana and Zach Lemire, who really did a stellar job. Everybody loved them and wanted them to do an encore performance. So it certainly isn't a slam on law enforcement to say that there's not enough of it to go around. When society, for instance, I don't know whether you've seen the videos of up in Portland, Oregon, or some of these larger cities where they're just allowing people to just break up the city. When that starts happening, you've run to the extent of your law enforcement capabilities, and pretty soon you need to take things into your own hands. One of my TIP volunteers the other night said, my wife was surprised, Lou, to said you would shoot somebody out in your street. And, at some point, you need to be thinking about this. If you think, oh, well, we want to let Democrats to run this country. For 8 years, Obama has been trying to stir the pot. So when you have the community kind of unravel, like Marysville has really unraveled over the last, I'd say, 8 years. And now we have a major homeless operation inside the city that's unmanaged most of the time. It's just kind of, I call it Bendorf Zoo. And it's totally changed my part of the city. In fact, I had some people over the other day, they were working in the area. They don't live in the area, and they said, man, they commented to me. I'm just there, right, near where they were working. They said, man, you got a lot of characters coming through here. And I said, yeah, we do. I just kind of got used to it. They said, up that alley, there's all kinds of gnarly folks coming through there, troubled folks. So what's happening is businesses there's just not enough police to manage. And the police, as we're realizing, the police are not addressing, I think Nate Black in the previous show said the police are not addressing issues down in the river bottoms or sheriff's department. I think they made comments like, well, we can't arrest our way out of this. I thought, oh, well, why don't we take that attitude on domestic violence or rape or murder or but, I don't know whether you've heard, I think we talked about it last week some, I know Andy did, that Walmart, you wonder, you think, when you don't manage the city or the county well, do you think that impacts business? Let me tell you how it's impacting business. Walmart is shutting down their store at midnight over in Linda for 6 hours. Do you think that's going to affect the city? Do you think that's going to affect the county tax revenues? Big time. The other thing is that I haven't figured out how they're doing that is, how when you go into stores now, it used to be you could just go grab a bottle of liquor or cigarettes or whatever and just bring it up to the counter and buy it like other stuff. Now that's all being locked up. You notice that? And so they tell me that Andy was saying that some aisles are going to be, you can't even get down some aisles. And I thought, how are they going to do that? Well, somebody said then the other day that some cosmetics and stuff are under lock and key. So, and the reason is when you change when you lower the penalties for theft and you say you can steal up to $950 worth of stuff and still get a misdemeanor and not even get locked up, there's no threat, there's no deterrent, and people just steal stuff. So people have told me, I'm not going to mention the stores, but there's a number of stores in town that sell equipment and all kinds of stuff that they say people just take stuff and go out our side door and we don't even pursue them because we're there's no outcome, and there's a threat. If something goes down gnarly, we could get sued over it. So it's less costly to just let the items go, and then charge higher prices to the rest of the law-abiding customers. So if you're law-abiding, you're paying a higher price for a community that's out of control, which is exactly what these new in fact, some of you may have voted for like Prop, I think it's 47 and 57, which reduce penalties on crimes. So so I notice elite universal security guys all over town, more and more all over town. And they are like across from where I live at 10th and E area, where Walgreens, CVS, Starbucks, people are constantly getting hit up, panhandled, their cars, people asking for gas money, bus money, coffee, whatever. Anyway, if you're a business and you're having problems and people are using your front, I know the Territorial Dispatch, some guy used the that little entrance area that's out of the weather as a toilet, and so if you're having those kind of problems, Elite Universal Security can help you. You can reach them at 749-0280. Also, Monty Hecker has been having signs for no on Measure K out at his place on Feather Boulevard at 5548 Feather Boulevard. You can go there 24 hours a day because it is a 24-hour dispatch center and security operation. They did have yes on 6 signs, but I think they may be out of those. I don't know about Cox signs on Governor Cox, or Cox for governor. But you can check. I know they have, the last I talked to Monty, they have no on K. So Monty will hire you to work for him, or he'll come and work for you, either way. So you could go to work for him and help protect other folks, protect other people's property, or you can hire him to come and solve your problems and save you or make you some money or save you some money going out the back door. So you can reach him at the number I just mentioned, or you could go on his website. Let me just mention the number again, 749-0280, or you can go on eliteuniversalsecurity.com or API-Academy.com. API-Academy will get you to, if you want to take courses online and you want to get any training where you can join his organization, or if you just want to take classes, you want to get a concealed weapons permit, they have those like once or twice a month, trainings on the weekends. October 27th and 28th is the next weekend. He's going to be doing a classroom and range day. Also, on November 17th, you want to learn how to handle a taser and get a taser or a pepper spray, take a pepper spray course. You can also get help there. So, it's just, we're in different times. It's amazing. I've watched my neighborhood change. There's a group of neighbors in our area, and with the help of the new police chief, Chris Sachs, who's transformed our neighborhood with us working together with them, we pulled a dozen cars, or they tagged a dozen vehicles in one block area. Crashed vehicles, broke down vehicles, vehicles on blocks. People just don't obey the law, do they? We got kind of a gnarly, the Bible calls it a fallen nature, a sinful nature, that we just ignore the law. And so if you just ignore things in your neighborhood, it does not get better, right? If you ignore voting, it does not get better. So if you ignore your neighborhood, so there's a number of us that have been working on just a one-block section. And we got all the cars. We got, of course, new cars crop up, so we got 2 new ones we need to get towed or tagged. But we removed the cars that I mentioned. And we're cleaning up. We evicted some people. We're killing all the rats and cockroaches out of the druggie house. And now there's been calling, like, it's interesting, these real estate management firms. I reminded a real estate management firm the other day I called. They manage a couple operations in our area that that the dynamic word in their name is management, not just collect the money. It's management. So they weren't doing any cleanup or yard work or maintenance on the buildings. So now they're all over there cleaning it up, and a number of things are straightening out. But it's because we have an active police chief that is he's going to pull all the dead metal. Did you know that it's in most cities it's illegal to jack your car up and work on it out in front of your house, or put it up on blocks, or store your vehicles for sale on the curb, right? Just stack them up along there. Have a used car lot on the curb. It's illegal because it makes the place look crappy. So anyway, but Monty Hecker will help you if you're listening from up in Butte County. I don't know whether they can hear us up in Shasta County, but Monty Hecker is working all up and down the valley. So give him a shout out if you want work or you need some help. This time of year, thieves are stealing farm products. Did you know that? They steal loads of walnuts, and then they'll steal almonds, and they just steal all kinds of stuff. I don't know whether they tried to steal those trailers of rice. They're probably not. The walnuts and the almonds are really worth a lot of money. Very expensive per pound. We used to catch when we were growing pomegranates out at the church. Remember we cut those guys out there at 2 in the morning. They were out there loading up. Some of these people that you can't get to take a job, they'll be working night shift. When I go to bed, they're always wanting to come out and work, those tweakers. So So I got a note from, I was talking about Diamond Dean Price, who's one of the highest paid law enforcement officials in the state of California, right up here in little old Gridley. He's famous, Diamond Dean. And they just have a little over 2 square miles, and he was getting $330,000 or something a year in the new budget. And I don't know, I wrote that article, talked about it on the radio. I don't know whether the city council members came out under the influence. They awoke. They were all under the anesthesia. But they thought, I don't think we ought to pay him that much. And so they offered him a deal he couldn't refuse, and he quit. But at the city council meeting, now he had quit. He turned his resignation before the city council meeting, but even Sheriff Honia, remember Sheriff Honia up at Oroville Dam, the guy that saved our lives? I think Honia saved hundreds. If he did one thing, I think he's a top sheriff up here in Northern California, but that dude will go to his grave. I think in his mind he's saying, I saved 180,000 people's lives, because he called the shot to evacuate the North State. And he went over and spoke at the city council meeting saying, hey, he spoke for himself and a district attorney, Mike Ramsey, up there. He's been a long-time district attorney. He said, hey, we like Price. And, but I don't think even the newspaper, the Peel Democrat, misquoted the salary of Price. They had him at $225, which still is a big plenty for just overseeing 6,000 people. But they didn't know what they were talking about. I actually had the budget, and and Stephanie McKenzie was helping me. Says, you ought to go look at the budget. You want to find out how that sees stuff. Well, I actually got pages of the budget that showed that salaries of these guys. These people, they must think they're working for little Las Vegas up there in Gridley. But old Price, he was carving himself out a fat piece of the hog. But I think the city council thought, something? I think we need to revisit all these salaries up here, and because we're out of sorts. Poor old Chris Sachs over here at Marysville, I thought Chris was being paid pretty good. He ain't even getting 50% of what and he's taking care of twice the work that old Price was. So it was kind of interesting. This guy wrote me from up there in Gridley, who knows what's shaking. And he says the public only knows misinformation conveyed through the rumor mill. They generally react inappropriately about the wrong things. In this case, the public did not understand one small salient point. Dean Price was paid more than Gridley could afford to pay him. He had priced himself out of the job. Now, I wrote an article. You can look it up maybe on the an old issue, maybe in the last couple of months, of the Territorial Dispatch. Is the title was "We Can't Afford the Help," and where I talked about the various salaries of local officials, including Gridley and Yuba County and Sutter County, and I just think, hey, it'd be nice to have a job where you worked a 1 year and make $250,000. And I know, and all the people I'm thinking of that are making kind of that money, I like these people. I like them. But I don't want to pay them that kind of money. And if they can make that money elsewhere, they should go do that. And I think at some point, every city, every county needs to sit down and say, you know, I'm not one of these guys that say, well, you only get what you pay for. You know something? I've lived on buying stuff cheap my whole life. That's how I've made it. I do it flying airplanes, getting air tickets to Vietnam. Everywhere I go, I'm looking for the best price, and just keep raising pay, because it isn't coming out of your pocket. It's coming out of the county coffers or the city coffers. That don't make sense to me. At some point, people are going to say, you know something? We've just priced ourselves. We just can't afford to pay these folks. So if nobody wants to work for us, we'll just come up with some better idea, like maybe farm the whole administration of the city out to a firm. You know, that's what Sandy Springs did. Was it Sandy Springs down Fulton County, Georgia? They just farmed the whole kit and caboodle out to an engineering or management firm. They just took over the whole thing, and they just said, we're going to do a different system, right? Well, we need to think that thing through. So that's Diamond Dean. So the next guy, there's a guy up there that's the city manager, and then health, human resources guy, and public works. Gridley, man, I don't know where those folks get all that money up there. Those. It's over. Okay, it's over. He said we got one more hour, but we got to take a break and let somebody else have a turn. We'll be right back. Well, we're into our last hour here. You're listening to Live with Lou if you just stumbled across us. And do you ever, are you on Facebook? You are. Did you notice every once in a while that people keep telling you, switch the clock, move your clock forward, backward? Do you ever get those posts? Is it just me? People like trying to screw around with me? And it isn't accurate, right? It's not the time to do that. So there's a deal on the ballot, you know, a daylight to reject daylight savings time. So I voted to get off that. I'm tired of it. It throws me off every time I have to go backwards or forwards. But it just shows you can't trust everything that comes through your feed, your news feed. And so the other day I saw this, and it got my attention because it was a photograph on my news feed and Facebook of some Vietnamese women where I work over there some, and so I recognize them without reading the article or the topic, that I recognize them as Vietnamese. So some of you think all Asians look the same. To me, they don't, because I've spent enough time over there to sort through some of them. And so they were Vietnamese ladies in a shoe factory, right? And so the caption said, "Just so I'm clear, these factory workers, which are 80% female, are making Nikes for 20 cents an hour and working 70 to 80 hours a week, so Nike can profit enough to pay Colin Kaepernick millions to speak out against oppression and injustice." Now, I want to say that again to you. Follow this with me. And I wondered whether it was true or not, okay? Because I thought it might be like to move your clock forward, move it back, and it's not the right day, and I'm going to get all screwed up. Just so I'm clear, these factory workers, which are 80% female, right, are making Nikes for 20 cents an hour and working 70 to 80 hours a week, so Nike can profit enough to pay Colin Kaepernick millions to speak out against oppression and injustice. The point being that these young women, or women of various ages, are working their fingers to the bone 80 hours a week, if it's true, for 20 cents an hour or so. And Nike's profiting off that, turning around and give Kaepernick supposedly, funding Kaepernick to stand out against oppression and injustice. Why didn't he go out and go over and talk to the Vietnamese government, see how that works out for him? So I thought, well, maybe this isn't even true. And I know a little bit about the shoe factory because one of the young ladies who I've known for years over there when she was a little girl, and I've been going over there long enough where then she became a young woman and finished high school, and she went to work in a shoe factory. Her name's Nhi, N-H-I, Nhi. And Nhi was an orphan, and my friends took her out of an orphanage and took her into a different home where they thought that'd be a better deal for her without going into all the gnarly details. And so they raised her along with some other kids that are street kids in Vietnam, Saigon. And so Nhi finished high school, and so she didn't, young women, it's difficult for young women if they don't become get into a profession. It's difficult to make much money. So when I found out about Nhi, I said, what's Nhi up to? And they said, well, Nhi is working in a shoe factory. And I said, well, how's that working? They said, well, she really would like to go to college. And I said, what do you want to do? And she said, well, she wants to be a nurse. I said, how much are you making at the shoe factory? And I think they said she was making $140 a month. So I was thinking the other day, I was saying, well, what's 20 cents an hour? And then all of a sudden I looked it up on the internet. I thought, I wonder if anybody looked in the background of this. So Snopes did a little thing on it. This thing went viral in September of 2018. So Snopes, which is run by a liberal group, Soros's group, right? But I thought, I wonder what they're saying about it. So let me tell you what they're saying about it. The tweet went viral in 2018, September, stating, et cetera, what I just told you. It said the tweet accurately asserted that 80% of Nike workers in Vietnam are female and that they perform between 70 or 80 hours of work a week. And that's what my friend Nhi was working, right? Again, there's evidence that this was the amount that they were paid was true in the 1990s. But since then, conditions have improved somewhat, and an external 2016 report found that while some workers were forced into illegal amounts of overtime, the statute, I won't get into the weeds there. Depending on where the factory work is, the workers would receive between $118 or $171 United States dollars a month for a normal working week. Now, my friend Nhi, she's getting right in the middle, 140, right? I mentioned that to some people and Americans, and they're just like shocked. Working your fingers to the bone all week, not like 5 days a week, and making $140 a month. However, it says it's not uncommon for the employers to withhold some of the money. It's called wage theft, and to force overtime, which decreases the wage per hour, which workers would effectively take home. That means Nike workers in Vietnam earned between 61 cents and 89 cents an hour in 2016, based on a working week of 48 hours. However, as the group pointed out, the effects of inflation and increased cost of living in Vietnam since the 90s means that the increase in the nominal hourly wage is not significant in real terms and may not be that high even in nominal terms. After one accounts for forced overtime and illegal practice, So, I was able to get Nhi out of that, and now Nhi is studying nursing, so I thought, I wonder what Nhi is going to make. I was thinking last night as I was doing some notes for the program today, I thought, I wonder what Nhi is going to make if she's a nurse in Vietnam, because nurses here make a lot of money, right? And so I went and looked up that, and I found out that Nhi is going to go from $140 a month working at a shoe factory, that if she works as a nurse, she's liable to make a minimum of $21,000 starting on up. Not bad, right? Not America, but not bad. So, so I just thought I'd bring that up because when Colin Kaepernick is on television for Nike, you can see the hypocrisy both in Kaepernick and Nike. I think maybe I bought my last Nike product. I think once in a while I'll buy, I usually buy a pair of shoes, athletic shoes, once every few years or something. Probably not going to fuss with Nike, but I think probably a lot of them are making their shoes over there in Asian countries, but they're not necessarily all getting in on this kneeling at the national anthem business, right? So this is another thing I ran into that I thought was kind of cool. It's rules. Have you noticed some women like to wear those leopard print clothes? Leopard print? Yeah. So this is a rule for wearing animal print yoga pants. Way less than the animal they represent. Hold that thought. So if you're thinking you're going to look good in animal yoga pants, animal print, make sure you weigh less than the animal they came off of. Does that make sense to you, Wiki? Wiki's laughing over here. Is that inappropriate? Will we get fired or get sued on that? The other thing I learned, I thought lie detector tests were pretty solid, right? Reputable, reliable. But I guess they aren't. I saw, who's that, Judge Jeanine Pirro? She was speaking at Liberty University, and she gave an amazing talk. I watched the whole thing. But she said that they're not admissible in court because they're not reliable. Now, I don't know why they would take them. Maybe they give the detective an idea on whether he should pursue the case. But Ted Bundy, the serial killer, he took a lie detector test. He passed it. He was good to go, right? And then a guy named Travis Walton, a UFO abductee, supposedly. He passed the test. So I guess he tried to prove to them UFO did abduct him. Aldrich Ames, CIA agent, KGB mole, he passed the lie detector. And Christine Blasey Ford, of the used Ford, she passed it. So I thought that was interesting that these lie detector tests may not prove that you're lying or not. The other thing I saw, remember when Popeyes came to town? And that was the last time we saw the big kahuna. He brought us out. Remember we brought the big boxes of, he felt the love that day. He felt the love, and he brought up the Popeyes chicken to us, and Bob Fischetti, the fish was out here. We all got to eat Popeyes. And they used to jam up. They couldn't even get in off 10th Street. People were backed up out in it, right? And now there's homeless people sleep in the parking lot over there now. It's empty, gone. Well, I've been having nostalgia for KFC, Kentucky. When I go to Vietnam, they got KFC over there, right? And but I saw, this is probably Photoshop, but said this one place said they were happy to have KFC back. Let's see, where is it? I don't think I have it right now, where it was that KFC came back to town, and they had a Taylor Swift special. It said 2 bony thighs, 2 small breasts, and a left wing, $8.95. Made sense to me. Well, I got to thinking, I don't know how I got onto this, how people die. I do this trauma intervention program, so about 65% of the calls we do each month, we do about 35 to 40 calls a month, and 65% of the calls involve a death. And like I do, that the media makes a big deal about gun deaths, right? And one of my friends who's a correctional officer at Yuba County, she posts some stuff on Facebook, and she posted this thing that listed all the different types of ways people die in the country. You remember back in the old days, they'd say he died of consumption. I always wondered what that was, right? Consumption. I thought maybe he just consumed too much. But he died of consumption. I think that's before they could figure out what people died of. But nowadays, everybody's got to die of something. The Bible says that's appointed once for every person to die, and then the judgment. It doesn't really get into the details of how you're going to die. It just says at some point, everybody's going to come to pass. So I always tell people that are looking for a miracle, we pray for people at the church for get miracles, right? Healing miracles. Some people get healed, some people don't. And I said, well, at some point, everybody's not going to get healed because everybody's going to die at some point. So anyway, my friend over at Yuba County, jail, she was making a point. There was a list of how people die, how many people die of what in the United States, and she made a point of highlighting how there's all this hullabaloo. Oh, my God, somebody just got shot, and they died by gunshot. We need to take away everybody's guns because of that, right? Well, I thought, I wonder, because it looked like it was taken off the internet, and I'm always suspect of stuff that comes on my news feed because I'm throws me like I'm thinking, oh, I need to change my clock. It got, you know, when it demands me to make a move, and then somebody says, no, it's not time to change your clock. So I started looking at the causes of death, like what's killing people nowadays. So I thought I'd just pass it on because my figures are a little bit different than my jailer friend, but not much. And so these are 2016 figures. If you wonder what's killing people nowadays, and you might think, you know, because the big numbers for the things that are killing most of the people, you think we need to spend a lot of money on that and see if we can save their lives, right? Save people from dying that way. So you hear all these people, hey, the biggest thing killing people, cigarettes, or the biggest thing killing people is they're eating too much food and the wrong food and all that kind of stuff, right? And we need to get rid of all the guns and then we'd stop every murder. But I looked up on the FBI list, and I realized from looking at the FBI homicides in 2016, people were killing each other all kinds of ways. Knives, cutting instruments, clubs, hammers. The FBI tells you all the lists. Fists, hands, feet, poison, explosives, fire. These are the way people burn people up, right, on purpose. Narcotics, give them an intentional overdose. Drowning, drown people, just push them under the water. Strangulation, asphyxiation, put a pillow over their face. Other weapons or weapons not even stated. I mean, the FBI just got a list of all kinds of things. So, if we wanted to eliminate any kind of things, we'd have to cut people's hands off, their feet off, right? All kinds of stuff. We'd have to say you can't have any pillows in your bedroom anymore because you're liable to put that pillow right over your partner's face. So it's just interesting when you get into this and you think the media makes such a big deal. Well, it all makes sense when you realize the media no longer just reports stuff. They actually have an agenda, and in this country, it's what we call a socialist or a liberal agenda, communist agenda, where they want to take away the guns. So when you think that heart disease kills 635,260 people in 2016, but gun-related deaths only amounted to 11,000, there's 330 million, 350 million people in the United States? Only 11,000 people. Have you ever noticed how they make a big deal? Oh, my God, the swine flu is coming. Or this kind of the Hong Kong flu or the bird flu and do this, do that. Don't come outside, wear a mask, get a shot, right? But every day, like Dr. Cassidy used to remind me of this, said, Lou, every day somebody's dying of the flu. Nobody's making a big deal about it. Flu kills some people. Pneumonia kills some people. And he says, it's just a big political phenomenon that they're running some political scam to make a big deal about it. So in 2016, 51,537 people died of the flu or pneumonia. You know, here's the deal, folks. People are going to die of something, right? They just don't die of nothing. So whether it's a stroke, whether it's an accident, one of the cool things I've noticed over the years being involved in trauma intervention is fewer and fewer people are dying from car accidents. Now, whether they're driving better or whether the cars are safer or they're wearing seat belts or something, I don't know, but it used to be over 40,000 a year. Now I think it's down in the 30s. So, but let me give you a perspective. Would you have guessed, what would you have guessed the biggest killer each year in the United States is? Cancer, heart disease, accidents, lower respiratory diseases, stroke, Alzheimer's, diabetes, influenza, nephritis, intentional self-harm, taking your own life, gun-related. How about HIV? Man, you remember when they went after President Reagan and they just said, oh, we hate you. You're not spending enough to save the lives of all the people that want to have sex up the backside, right? We want to have sex every way we want. Screw an animal, whatever, and you should protect us. Remember, they just went after President Reagan. You're a heartless old fart. Well, HIV in 2015, couldn't find 2016. These are 2016 figures I'm going to give you. In 2015, 6,465 people died with HIV on board. Just 6,000 people in the whole nation. And we got that as a front and center. Like, my God, we're going to stomp out HIV. We're going to spend $1 billion on HIV, right? You can see how it's a political agenda, right? So we had in that year we had 598,038 people die of cancer, right? Heart disease 635,000, accidents 161,000, all kinds of accidents. Tree fall on somebody, you know, somebody dies in a flood or a hurricane, or right, falls off a building working on a construction project, right? All kinds of accidents. But the number one thing you know, there's one bigger than that. Can you guess it? I've already told you, heart disease, cancer, accidents, chronic lower respiratory, stroke, Alzheimer's, diabetes, influenza, nephritis, intentional self-harm, gun-related deaths, HIV. I still not got the big one. The big one, and we're not like removing straws to save whales. We're not doing anything to stop this. 887,000 in 2016 killed intentionally by human beings, killed their own people, killed babies. The top killer every year. Did you know that? They don't even list it that way. It's the top killer. It's something, it's not a disease. It's not an accident. It fits into the gun-related deaths. It's an intentional killing of a human being. Gun-related deaths, that's every week you hear something. Somebody died, we should take away the guns. Somebody died, I think we ought to remove the doctors. I was thinking, I can't remember, was it Till or Tillis, the guy the doctor got shot? He was handing out bulletins in his church, and a guy went in there and killed him because he was a partial birth abortion doctor. Isn't that interesting? I thought, a guy's handing out bulletins in church, at his church, and during the week he kills kids all week, and then he comes and worships Jesus on the weekend. And I thought, this probably get me in trouble, but to me, God bless the guy that shot the dude, right? How many kids were spared getting killed because that guy got put out of commission? I think, oh my God, abortion is legal. We should protect that guy. You know, same people say that don't feel like that about slavery. Slavery was legal. People go have sex with black people, and they owned them, right? They owned people. They owned their kids. They owned their husbands. They could beat them. They could do whatever they want with them, right? It was legal. And yet people violated that law and snuck people. They had what they called the Underground Railroad. You remember that? And we all think, oh, they did a good deed, sneaking those people out of there. I bet they even shot some of those old slave owners. And people thought, hallelujah, shot that old dude, raped that woman, right? And we think, oh, there you go. The pro-life movement's violent. It's a violent deal. They're killing kids every single day, up and down California, killing kids. Did you even lose any sleep over that last night? Nah. But oh my God, somebody beat up an abortionist or shoot an abortionist. Oh my God, he murdered that doctor. Is he really a doctor? Anybody? I think I could abort a kid, reach up in there and dismember a kid. Just think about it. Pretty ugly. So the big killer in 2016, abortion, right? Healthy kids, healthy doctor. Just decided I'm going to eliminate those kids. I confronted my doctor. I had a doctor that I thought was a great guy back in the 1980s. did a lot of free work. I was taking in people off the street, running a nonprofit organization, taking in people, and he helped provide free medical care. And then I realized somebody said one day that Doc so-and-so was aborting babies. I went in and confronted him. I said, this is back when they used to deny that it was an actual baby. He said, Lou, yeah, I do that. I think it's a good thing. And he said, any doctor to deny, this is all the way back in the 80s. Anybody to deny that wasn't a baby is a liar. I said, well, thank you for being honest at least. It's the last time I ever did business with him. Pretty sad, folks. Pretty sad, but some of you probably are just thinking, oh, I'm sure there's a reason to do that. I could take care of all the babies that weren't aborted and they decided to bring them to term. I got people to adopt every one of them. I got people calling me all the time. Find me a baby. You can't find them because they're killing them. We're going to take a break and come back for the last half hour. The end of the show at noon, and there'll be a sports talk show, but we have a caller. We got him ready. Dave, are you there? Are you there, Dave? Dave, are you there? Lost him. I guess we...
Hi, I'm here.
Okay. Dave, go ahead.
Okay. Well, up where I live, they're looking at possibly some additional tax increases up in Chico here. Maybe a special election 2019, and they want to spend tens of thousands of dollars or more to hire a PR firm to propagandize the public into raising taxes. And I just think that is just so outrageous that there's never enough money, right, to fix the streets, but there's plenty of money to hire PR firms, or plenty of money to give bureaucrats raises, right, or fat pensions, but there's never enough money to fix the streets. But anyway, I think that, you know, there should be some law. There should be something. They can't spend our tax money to hire PR firms to propagandize us. That, you know, how do we stop that? You know, can we get a law passed? Can Gallagher do something? Or what do we do at the local level?
Well, two things. One is down here in the Yuba Sutter area, we've worked with Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association. They have attorneys on staff that are this area is their expertise, and I have always felt that they could not use our tax dollars to do what they're doing, and I thought there was a law pertaining to that. So that's an area that I'm interested in getting to the bottom of, but I have said that over and over again, but in the case of Yuba County, I think they're going to end up spending $200,000, and they're hiring probably the same firms that your group up there will hire. There are certain firms in California that are specializing in pushing these tax increases through, and if you look at their websites, they actually brag about it. So are you talking about a tax increase in Butte County or in the city of Chico?
In the city of Chico. So what they're looking at is at the city council meeting, the last one, I think they had one city council member was proposing a bond measure, and the other was proposing a sales tax increase. And the bureaucrat who makes $300,000 a year was saying, it sounded like he said the sales tax increase wouldn't be enough, so they might go the bond route and put a tax on our homes. So, and that's just one tax. And the newspaper a couple days later had an article about how the recreation district wants a tax increase and the law enforcement wants a tax increase. And they said Chico may have a taxing future. So, I mean, these guys are going to go. They're going to go hog wild here to fleece us because our sales tax is still only 7.25%. Amazingly,
that's great.
Yeah, so they're really, they think that we're not paying enough, right? Because you guys are paying more, and other counties and cities are paying more. And they look at these other counties, and they see dollar signs, right? They say if they can do it, we can do it. That's their attitude, right? It's not about spending within your means. It's always about fleecing the taxpayers as much as you can. That's where these guys are coming from.
Right. So,
you know, about Dean Price, the news up here made it sound like the city council crucified Christ. I mean,
yeah.
You know, they never mentioned about what you had mentioned, and they said, 75 angry people showed up at City Hall, and they don't investigate, right? They just they just report what the politicians tell them. That's what they do. So.
Well, the guys that are left there that are running that city have got the greatest thing in the world. You can imagine the small amount of management it takes to run that small of a city, and yet they're getting way, way more than cities far bigger than them. So back to what you're saying, here's my recommendation is that if you go to howardhjta.org, on their website, if you follow, ideas on to fight sales tax measures, they have a whole article there on how to get organized, and then they will actually consult with you when you get down to it. And so it includes like how to write letters to the editor, creating a committee to organize, to do signage, to get your arguments. They help you frame in your arguments, what the city and county or whoever's doing this, what they can do, what they can't do, what Proposition 218 meant to, on whether a measure has to receive 50% plus 1 to pass or 2/3 to pass. So what's happening is these jurisdictions have been wanting their cake and eating it too, in the sense that they want to use the argument of police and fire to leverage people's passions, like, hey, we need police and fire, and we need to protect police and fire. They use that as the leverage to get the tax through, but they don't just use the tax for that. And so in that situation, if they promote it kind of like as if it's a special tax, but they still the ordinance says they just need 50% plus 1 vote, that's illegal. And that's what Yuba County's doing, and that's what Howard Jarvis wrote a letter to the supervisors saying what you've done is illegal to put this on the ballot in such a way and to promote it in such a way. So there are rules to that, but these guys are all specialists, and these PR firms are specialists in how to split the hair or work the gray areas to get by. Roseville, the city of Roseville, was taken to court, and they lost in court against Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association because they did just what Yuba County's doing, is they promoted special tax, but they only put it on the ballot as a general tax. So that's what I would do, is get a hold of Howard Jarvis and get a group of people that want to fight it.
Okay.
Okay?
All right, thanks.
Thanks for listening. Thanks for calling, Dave.
Okay, bye.
Bye. All right, well, you can see, and I think there's going to be over 100, I think Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association said there's going to be over 100 different cities, counties, jurisdictions that are going up, adding these taxes. And they don't just have to be 1%. They could be 0.5%. They could be 1.5%. I think the max you can go for is 2%. But here's the other thing that you might not be thinking. Yuba County could add 1% this year if it passes, and if it sticks at 50% plus 1, if they don't have a legal action against them. And then 2 or 3 years down the road, this is a 10-year tax, so 2 or 3 years down the road, they can decide, hey, this tax wasn't enough, and so they can add another percent. So they can just keep adding on percentages, and or other entities could add a percentage as well. So this, it's one of those deals where people really can stand up against this, or they can just roll over and just give more and more money to government. And it's so fascinating because just like Dave from Chico was mentioning, that the Dean Price thing, what you read in the paper was not what really happened up there. And yeah, there were people that complained, but people in Gridley, I don't think, have any idea of how they're being ripped off by the government of Gridley. And the fact that they're even dipping into they have an electric company up there that they buy and sell electricity off the grid as opposed to using PG&E. And they're using now money out of they're charging people electric rates, and then they're using some of those electric rates to fund the city. And that's also, in my view, illegal, although Reading just lost a case about their government doing the same thing. In other words, the government has said, or the different propositions or measures that have been passed by the citizens have said, hey, if you want to raise taxes, you got to do it in a certain way. You can't do it backdoor, like taking money out of a electric charges or utility charges or water charges and then backdoor use that somewhere else. That's illegal taxation. In other words, if you got extra money to go spend for administrators over in the city or the county, you should lower our electric rates. You should lower our water rates. In other words, the water rate should go to pay for the distribution and the maintenance of our water system. Electric rates should go for the maintenance and distribution of electricity, not go to some other cause over in the city. But what's happening is they set the rates and they bring in a surplus, then they take the cream off the surplus and use it somewhere else. Then they say, oh, well, we're short on our electric company or we're short on our water company. Now we need to raise rates. And so that is an issue that still needs to be sorted out, although Reading just lost that issue up in the with the California Supreme Court. So we'll see that that's still an issue that needs to be struggled over. Now, I don't know. We've run out of time today to talk about this. I may just write about it in the Territorial Dispatch, but the wealthy in the state of California are converting this state to a socialist state. And what you'll notice in any socialist state, nothing works. Nothing works right. So whether you look at Caltrans, whether you look at any agency in the state of California, it's broken. So California, the DMV budget, Department of Motor Vehicles, we pay some of the highest motor vehicle rates in the United States. The budget for the Department of Motor Vehicles in California is $1.2 billion with a B. Okay, it increased 6% or $63 million from the last budget in 2017-18. So what's happened down there? You'll see people that are waiting in long lines circling the agency because they can't. They now have a new ID that you have to have by 2020 if you want to get on a plane or you want to go into a federal building. It's got to be a new special ID that's got more beef to it. They know that they're looking at your paperwork to determine who you really are, birth certificate, multiple different types of ID. So it's caused a big backlog at the DMV. However, the DMV, just like when the Obamacare was brought into existence, they couldn't get their websites to work. And it's amazing to me, you order any kind of a shirt, you go to a clothing provider, jewelry provider, Amazon.com, Lands End, all these different LL Bean, flawless computer systems. You just, Barnes & Noble, you just order books, order stuff, it works, da-da-da-da, it's done. DMV, government, these government computer systems are screwed up. So the DMV now is admitting that thousands and thousands of people have been registered improperly. We have now people that have been automatically registered to vote, and they weren't even citizens of the United States. They weren't necessarily illegal, but they were not citizens. In other words, when I go to Vietnam, I'm there legally, not illegal, legally. I got a visa, but I'm not a citizen, so I can't do everything a citizen can do. So if they automatically gave me a different type of authority in the country, that would be wrong. So what happened is the DMV office, thousands of illegal voters have been registered by the DMV. It's a crime, yet no one has been arrested. And no one has been jailed, and they are allowed to continue every day in this fraud. So in other words, people, if you go down and you're not a citizen of the United States, and you go down to County Clerk Terry Hansen in Yuba County, and you register to vote, that is a crime that you could go to jail for. right? In fact, people have been deported out of this country for illegally registering to vote and voting, and they were here with a work permit, but they say, you violate our law, you're out of here. So it says here, an error at California Department of Motor Vehicles caused more than 1,000 people, more accurately about 1,500, including some who were not U.S. citizens, to be incorrectly registered to vote. The DMV admitted that a processing error at an agency field office resulted in as many as 1,500 people being added to the voter rolls between April 23rd and September 25th. I wonder if most of those happen to be Democrats. Just a thought. So the widespread glitch was discovered when Randall Marquis, a Canadian citizen but a legal U.S. resident, in other words, he's not a citizen, but he's legally here, living in California, notified the DMV he had received a piece of mail from the agency saying he was registered to vote. In response to Marquis' alert, the agency ordered an internal audit and discovered hundreds of similar cases. This is after 23,000 errors were caught and tens of thousands of illegal aliens registered, but the Secretary of State, Alex Padilla, refused to take them off the voting rolls. Alex happens to be a Democrat. Or even identify them. California elections, well, I'll skip that. An error at California Department of Motor Vehicles caused more than 1,000 people. I said that. Okay, I'm going to go on down here a little bit farther. And so the DMV said the improper registrations were made through no fault of the customer. None of the people who were registered to vote due to the error were illegal immigrants. In other words, they could have been in the States legally, but they weren't illegal. In other words, they came here without proper paperwork. So this is the second major statewide error at the DMV in the last 2 months. Let's see what else here. That Padilla says he was deeply frustrated and disappointed by the errors. He called on the agency to hire an outside consultant to help shore up its voter registration. You remember Michelle Obama chose her college roommate to build the website for Obamacare. Cost $1.5 billion. You remember seeing the Secretary of Health? She couldn't even get on and order insurance. Sebelius, remember Sebelius? She, right on TV, she goes on the website. She could not order health insurance on the Obamacare website after spending $1.5 billion. An audit of California's DMV voter registration program, commonly known as Motor Voter, is likely to turn up more instances of mistaken registration, according to Public Interest Legal Foundation, who follows election integrity issues. The Public Interest Legal Foundation released a report in August and found that hundreds of non-citizens were recently purged from the voter rolls in 3 major California counties, most of them having registered through the Motor Voter program. Now, this is interesting because some of these conservative legislators in Sacramento, when they wanted to give DMV $63 extra million, they said, we want to audit like they audited Caltrans and figured out they had 3,500 too many people. They didn't need them, but they wouldn't fire them because Jerry Brown wanted to keep them. So these people wanted an audit of the DMV before they gave them a raise, but they wouldn't do it, the liberals. So Padilla, it says here, there can be much more to come on this front given Secretary Padilla's quick call for an audit. Oh, he wants an audit now. Now Alex Padilla, he's going to want to audit, finally. And he quoted claims from non-citizens caught in the system. So too many non-citizens learn of their unlawful registrations from federal authorities. So you're a non-citizen and you're going to get your citizenship, right? And when they do the background check, they see you're registered to vote illegally, right? Complication, right? They say, hey, wait a minute, I didn't register. Yeah, you're registered right here because they register in a motor voter, right? But you're illegal. In other words, you're in the country legally, but you illegally registered, but the DMV did it wrong, right? So now people are screwed up with the immigration issues. And So it says, thanks to sloppy motor voter enforcement, it's goofing up people's attempts to become legal American citizens. It says here, we've seen thousands document those rude awakenings throughout the country. So, all right. Well, I'm going to have to wait till next week or I'll write about this. There's an article, if you want to look it up, it's an amazing article by Edward Ring, called California's Socialist Oligarchy Making the State Unaffordable. I think it's a one of a two-part series. It's out, and it is some fascinating facts about California. I'll just say this. When I grew up, my dad used to say, finish everything on your plate because people in China are starving. And people in China were starving, but I always wondered why. Why would people be starving? You know, why would they be starving? Or in India, right? Well, it was because the government was socialist and communist. They had plenty of land. It was just like, it was in the same, my friend Thuy Nguyen in North Vietnam, she said, Lou, as I was a young girl, we used to collect bugs to eat because there was no food in Vietnam. And it was when the communists took over. So when I flew over and I trained through China and both India over a period of years, I thought, because I thought overpopulation, remember they're going to just kill all the babies and that would solve it, right? Crazy, genocide. But when I went to China, we were on trains for 24 hours and we'd occasionally pass through a settlement or a city, but it was just like hours and hours and hours of open space. India, you say, oh, well, there's 1 billion people. Yeah, but they don't take that much space compared to the whole huge country. When you fly over California on Southwest Air or JetBlue or whatever, you'll see there's some cities, but most of California is farmland. It's just open land and land that could be built upon without hurting farmland. And so this whole thing is, we talked about Agenda 21 a few years ago. It's a United Nations plan on how they think humans should live. And so that's what this is all about. Maybe we'll cover it next week, or I'll write a short article to summarize what Ed Ring has written. Ed Ring is a great writer. We're going to shut her down here. Some sports specialists are coming in here to talk about what's shaking out there. So we're going to be back. You coming back next week? All right. No, we're going to have to pre-record. Okay, sad day. It's a sad. Some people are going to be disappointed. But we'll catch you next week one way or the other. We'll fake it, okay? Catch you later.